Hi everybody, my name is Anne. Thanks for tuning in today to Art on the Creek. We're going to have some fun today. I've got some watercolor paper from Meeden, that's 100% cotton. We're going to play with that. It's the rough textured paper. I thought that would be a whole lot of fun today to try the Members' Choice painting of the sunrise. I took a picture on one of our morning walks a couple weeks ago. We've had some gorgeous sunrises and sunsets here in the area. So let's crack out that rough textured watercolor paper and let's see what we can do when we put it through the test. Here we go. Now I know right now this view is pretty low tech. I'm just showing you what my reference will be on my iPad, and most of this will be off screen while we're working, but I'll put a link in the description below to that photo. I've got all of my photos on Dropbox, and anything from my videos that you link to, you can certainly use those however you wish. Whoops. And yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun with this one. Now, the way that I'm thinking of doing this is really just very, very loosely. I'm going to focus on the sunrise itself. I don't really want to put a lot of investment in the foreground. I do want to highlight the bridge and the path, but that's about it. I'm going to acknowledge the tree and the trees on the horizon, but that's about it. We're going to keep this really loose and fun. And for this particular video here, I am going to kind of speed it up and just give you a summary of what I've done. But the full-length tutorial will be on my membership platform. So if you've been thinking about channel membership, actually right now is a great time to join because I'm doing something extra special for October and November of 2024. I am including a full-length members tutorial every single week because this is my birthday month in November, and just my way of saying thank you so much. So if you're interested in membership, there's a link down below. Let me talk about this rough watercolor paper. It is 15 inches by 11 inches, which means you can divide it up. There's 20 sheets here, and you can, don't shy away from these big sheets, because if you divide this into 4, you'll be able to have 4 finished 5x7 paintings, and then feasibly you can use the back too. So no matter how many pages you want to divide this into, it's ready to go. And the thing I really like about a block for this purpose, what we're going to paint today, is that we can put a lot of water on it. Now, Meeden has sent me this paper as a gift, and I wanted to share it with you. Thank you so much, Meeden, because this paper is really, really great. And I'm very happy to share it with you as a watercolorist. If you are working in colored pencil and you use watercolor paper, or if you are a watercolorist, multimedia artist, this paper is 100% cotton. It's affordable, and I will have a link down below with a coupon. Now, the coupon won't work on my Amazon links down below in the description, but it definitely will work on the Meeden website. And at the time I'm filming this, they are having a special promotion for their anniversary, so you might be able to take advantage of further discounts. I'm not sure when this publishes if that sale will still be going on, but there will definitely be a coupon, and if you choose to shop through that, I may earn a small commission. So when you open these blocks, you're going to see this facing page here, and it's just a page to protect that first sheet of watercolor paper. So when you open these, you can see, when you open these up to take your paper off, you can see when you're working with a block, there is a space here, right where it says open there. You can just slide any kind of a knife, and I just use a palette knife. You can slide that in there and break that glue. And then what that does is it allows you to very easily take the paper off. Now, I'm just lifting this one off with my hands. If we were removing an actual sheet of watercolor paper, you'd probably want to very gently and carefully run that palette knife all the way around it. Sometimes I've had metal knives leave marks on the subsequent pages, but this one doesn't, so I'm really happy with that. So this is the rough texture. Pretty much watercolor paper comes in hot press, cold press, and rough. And I'm sorry you're getting a shadow from the camera support there, but there we go. Now I think you can really kind of see it's almost a herringbone texture. Pretty pronounced. And if you are using any kind of a technique where you're going to use dry brush or any granulating watercolors, then rough paper is really going to be your best friend. Because when you're using that dry brush technique, when you swipe the side of the brush across your paper, that really enables you to catch those peaks on the paper, and you would want more of those, and that would be your rough situation. Same goes for granulating watercolors, where you have those heavier pigments that separate and go down. You want deeper valleys for that granulation to really take a feature. So we're going to use some naturally granulating pigments today. I'm going to use a cobalt blue for the sky. I really do like that. It does granulate naturally as a pigment. And I'm just trying to find the beginning of this washi tape here. I found some seasonal washi tape. I thought we could have some fun with some pumpkins if I can ever find out where it opens. And I'm going to tape around this. Now, washi tape is a great thing to have, and I don't know how many of you use it, but as with all adhesive tapes, I've found this to be true of just artist masking tape as well. Over time, they do lose their adhesions. So you do want to be sure, especially with washi tape, I think, because it's such a delicate adhesion, you want to be sure and use it up. If you buy it, then, put it to use, because it'll go bad, and then the tape won't adhere, and then you're left with a tube of stuff that just doesn't work. A roll, I mean. So anyway, I'm using up these washi tapes, and I really like them. They're so cute. You can get so many different kinds. You can really go crazy over washi tape, and admittedly, I probably have in my lifetime, but I use them for other purposes as well. So I just think they're a lot of fun, and I thought, why not? Today, let's just use some pumpkins for our border. So this is the other thing that washi tape will do for you, is it'll give you that nice, crisp, clean white border. And I just want to make sure when I put that tape down that it's really adhered very, very well, because this rough texture does have more texture. It might make it a little bit more difficult for the tape to adhere. So we're just going to spray a bunch of water on here. And this is one of my favorite things about using rough watercolor paper. 100% cotton paper will do this for you too, but rough, it's just so much more fun to see the water really move on it. And I do want to use quite a lot of water here. So I've got my mottler brush, and I'm going over it just to make sure it's all even. And for those of you that are wondering how much water to put on your paper, obviously I need more here. I'm in a very dry climate, and I just find that things dry out very quickly here. So I am very used to using more water than what I see most people do. You'll kind of have to develop a feel for it. But as a general rule of thumb, the amount of water that you want on your watercolor paper, and we're going to start with a wet on wet technique for the sky here, which is why I'm saturating the paper. You want it to have a sheen to it, but you don't want to see any puddles. When you see puddles, then you can run into something called back runs. Now, those aren't necessarily bad, but they are something that is kind of hard they're kind of hard to control and make it part of your painting. So just to make your life easier, you want to avoid any puddles along the edges. Now, about the water running on the rough paper, what I really like is it has all of those valleys to it. So this water, our watercolor rather, is going to take on a life of its own. If you can envision watercolor as a performer, this is the best stage for it in my mind. Of course, if you want to keep it controlled, then more of a hot press would probably be what you want. And the cold press would be somewhere kind of in between, just kind of a happy medium. Now, when I told you in the beginning that I was going to do a very loose interpretation of this, this picture that I took, right now, this is where it starts to be pretty loose, because I am not going to leave that white space on the right for the brightest light coming through. If you really want to take this photo and get into do some detail and really make it look like it actually does, that's completely fine. You can do that. This is my artist's interpretation of the photo that I took. I truly enjoy creating art that definitely has my paintbrush signature to it, my personal touch. And that's how I like to paint. That's how I like to create. Yes, we can all see this photo. We all see what it looks like. I want to put a little bit of Anne into this, and I would hope that you would do the same. If you really do want to make it identical to the way the photo looks and do some photorealistic painting, of course, that is fine with me. I'm never going to judge you. In fact, all I would ever do is applaud your efforts, because if you manage to do a doodle in the corner of your notepad today, guess what? You're an artist. It's don't sell yourself short because you can't do something like another artist or someone else that you like. We really just need to find our lane and stick to it and just do the best that we can. And that's pretty much true of everything in life, isn't it? The paints that I'm using, let me explain those to you. This is a palette that I had out. It's a mix between Isaro watercolors and I've got Michael Harding in there. And I also have a little bit of Winsor Newton. So what I'm mixing here right now is kind of a gray. I'm trying to go for a gray, and with that I am mixing a burnt sienna with a cobalt blue. Trying to stay cobalt blue on most of this, and sometimes I did go into an ultramarine because I just needed a little bit of a stronger kick of blue. But for the most part, I'm using this cobalt and ultramarine. Sometimes I'll use a burnt sienna in here, but what I'm doing now is mixing the gray with the clouds. Now the yellow that I used was a Hansa yellow medium. Sorry, I'm trying to read these notes without my glasses on, which is always a challenge. And a pyrrole red. I really love a pyrrole red. When you're mixing paint for a sunrise or sunset, the color that I absolutely love to use is transparent orange, but I did not have that here. So I went ahead and used the pyrrole red. And I also kicked in a little bit of this Isaro Rose, which is a a PR122. You'll have that by other names in your pigments. You can use any kind of a magenta, a quinacridone magenta. The quinacridones tend to be so deep that you might want to water it down a little bit, but any kind of a magenta would be just fine to get that pink in there. And then you can certainly lighten that up. You could also use a potter's pink, or you could use a rose madder, anything like that, even alizarin crimson. Anything that has that pink tone is so fun to mix with the yellows. So you can see here we've worked wet on wet, and all of those colors are really having fun, just playing together and just really filling in the space. I'm really keeping in mind kind of where the clouds are. Now this is not going to be any kind of depth and dimension yet. This is just laying down blocks of color. And as we continue, you see we're doing that same thing here. Right now I'm going in with the burnt sienna and the magenta and really just getting in some basis of color here. And if you look back at the reference photo, you'll see that there really was not a lot of pink down in the grass there. Some of it does have like a purple cast to it, but not a lot. What I really wanted to do was to pick up the colors in the sunset and repeat them somewhere in the landscape. Whenever you can do that in your painting, no matter what it is, if you can take that color and repeat it in some form, if you're mixing it in with something else, anything like that, somewhere else in your painting, it really helps to bring your painting together and give it some real neat cohesion. The trail there, what I used for that cinder dust trail is a Davies Gray. That one is by Winsor Newton. And I really do like that paint quite a bit. It really is very much like an earth pigment, because it just really stays in that hard rock form. Very difficult to re-wet, so I do have to keep spraying it often. So now I've switched brushes here, and I've gone to another Aqua Elite. This one is a number 12 round, and I'm working with this Isaro green. It's an emerald green, a PG15. This green does not have a lot of punch to it. In fact, I had to ultimately go into another palette and dip into some sap green. I am mixing this with a PV23, which is like an imperial violet. It is Isaro purple. And what I'm trying to get is kind of a like the color of a blue spruce. If you can mix sap green and some kind of a purple, like a dioxazine purple or a royal purple of some kind, you can get a really nice color for pine trees. And that's what I'm doing right along here, along the edge. And you notice I'm just suggesting them. I'm not putting in any detail because this is not going to be the star of the show. I just need something to show that there is a horizon right there. At this point, you can see I've blocked in some of the suggestions of where those grasses would be with a lighter wash of this burnt sienna, and now I'm going in with a thicker, more viscous wash of it to kind of just accentuate some of these grass fronds that would be in the area. I'm not worrying about every single patch of grass. I'm not going to put everything in. I'm just suggesting that there's some grass growing there in that area. And now for these trees here along the horizon line. You'll notice that I'm just kind of going up randomly and letting that first layer of trees be the background, the furthest trees away. And now with a mid-range green, I'm kind of putting some trees in front. And I'm just using the side of my brush, the tip of my brush, just really making it varied. These trees are far away, so all we can do is tell that they are uneven on the horizon. And I'm just kind of trying to suggest that these are closer than the first wash that I painted on. So we'll put some of these grasses down in here just to kind of help marry those two, and we'll pick up at the next phase. And just as we did the trees in consecutive layers, we're also doing this tree in the foreground the same way. I'm putting in the lightest layer of leaves first, and then we'll go back and put in a layer of darker leaves and add some branches. We'll have a lot of fun with that one. Now that those branches are on the tree, I think I'll go ahead and let that side dry for a little bit, and we'll work on the basis of this bridge. Now, I have crossed this bridge probably 1,000 times, and I pretty much remember what it looks like, which is part of what I wanted to do. I know that they tell you never draw from memory, never paint from memory, but like I said, I really wanted my own signature and interpretation to this here. So that is why I chose to just draw the bridge in. I wanted this to be drawn with a paintbrush. I wanted it to be loose. I wanted it to be very artistic and very, very suggestive that there is a structure there that might look a little bit old. That's what I can convey if I'm sketching with a paintbrush. This is just something that I have discovered from my experimentations with art. If you do want to do something differently, that's totally fine. You go ahead and do that. I never want to discourage you from creating in any way that you would want to. What I wanted to do was to give this bridge a little bit of a ricketiness to it, and that is why I went in and sketched it with the paintbrush itself, because my hand is not as steady with the paintbrush as it is with a pencil. So take whatever God gave you and use it to your advantage. And in my case, that's taking a little bit of arthritis, shaky hands, and vision that certainly was not as good as it was when I was 30, and applying that to the canvas. So that's something that I really encourage you to do, is just embrace everything about yourself when you are creating art, because we do put so much of ourselves in art. The art that I made years ago doesn't look like the art that I'm creating today. It almost looks like a totally different hand created it. And it makes perfect sense because my hands don't look like they did 30 years ago. So don't ever sell yourself short. Don't compare yourself to other artists. Embrace who you are, where you are in that moment, and really enjoy the process, because that is what it's all about. Now that we've filled in those larger rocks on the bottom right and kind of started where the ones in the foreground will be, and everything is dry up top, I think it's time to go in and work on some of the shadows in these clouds. So this is one way to do it. It's a really fun way to do it. You'll see many, many tutorials on clouds, but this is a way that I really like to create sunsets. I put the bulk of the paint down first, and then I go back in with water and give that paint a place to travel. So the thing to remember about clouds is that they are in layers. You have some closer to you than some farther away, and you're going to want to be aware of where the shadows lie on the clouds. Now here I did it the opposite way. I put the water down first and then went in with the paint. You can really do it either way. But in this case, the sun is coming up. So that means the light is pointing upward. And because those clouds have mass and structure to them, those shadows are going to be varied throughout the depth of the clouds. You just really need to study those clouds, take lots of pictures of clouds, and figure out where those shadows are, because you want to be able to make your clouds have some depth and dimension. And the way to that, the key with everything in art to showing a 3D form, is creating shadow and light. So you can see here, we'll put down that orange, which looks shockingly out of place. But what we're going to do is go in with some water and just give that a place to merge and run around. And I intentionally mixed that with some of the other colors. I think I mixed a purple in there to give it kind of a brown, because that's what's going on in the clouds. We've got a lot of grays, browns, oranges, pinks, yellows. Whenever you mix any of those warm reds and yellows with a purple, you're going to get a brown. So that's going to happen, and that is okay when you're doing a sunrise or a sunset, because those colors do exist. So once again, we'll put some of that orange down, and I'm going back in here for more paint, and then we can spread it around. Let's see, I've got a good piece of pigment on here. Here's a good blob of orange. We're going to put that down. And again, that is a Hansa yellow medium mixed with a Pyrrole red. And now I'm rinsing off my brush, and we'll come back in with water and just let that seep up. And this is what's so great about using 100% cotton paper And particularly, I think a rough paper for a sunrise or sunset painting works so well because it really gives that water all of these wonderful natural rivulets to follow. So let's see where this ends up after we've put down all of these shocking blobs of color and let them merge together. And here you can see we've got a really vibrant sky with most of the light coming from that right portion. I was really happy with the way this turned out. All we need to remember is to focus on blocking down those colors first, wet on wet, and then going wet and dry and giving that paint permission to flow. And now we're going to get this completely dry and just put in a few finishing touches. I'm going in with an ink pen to kind of sketch around these rocks really loosely, again, really organically, just following how the colors change in the paint that I have down, just highlighting and helping to shade those changes in gradients of color with the watercolor that it naturally resulted in. And the two colors that I used, the mixes rather, that I used for the rocks are, I went in with a straight burnt sienna, and again, it is that burnt sienna mixed with the cobalt blue. And the pen that I'm using is a permanent pigment liner. It's a Fude nib, so it's really having fun going over this rough paper. Something I do want to mention, if you are using a soft nib pen on these on rough watercolor paper, do be aware that that really can wear down your pen nib a lot faster than normal. But I'm just going to go in and continue to add some pronounced lines here, and then let's see the final. Now, regardless of what you're using, I always recommend that you remove that washi tape with a heat tool, because even the most gentle washi tape can leave an adhesive if you've had it on there for a long time. It's just a good measure of precaution. So here is the final view of the sunrise in Parker over the Hilltop Trails, and I'm just going to go ahead and sign this. I recommend that you sign everything that you do, at least with your initials and a date, just so you can know where you were at that point in your artistic journey. Thank you so much, guys. I'm so happy that you hung out with me today. And don't forget, if you are interested in seeing this tutorial full time, it took me about an hour to do this painting. That one is over on my membership platform, and that's just one of the benefits for channel members. You do get full-length tutorials in addition to monthly Happy Mail, and this past month, I sent my channel members a couple of fun stickers from some artwork that I created. So there's all kinds of things that that you can benefit from as a channel member, in addition to feedback if you like it, the weekly tutorials. I've got a newsletter, and I also send out little gifts every month to thank you so much for being a part of Art on the Creek. And for those of you that are still watching, I really appreciate everything that you do. I'm so glad that you're here. And if you give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment, that would be fabulous, because that also helps my channel. And if not, if you're one to just watch, well, that's fine too. I really appreciate every single one of you guys, and I hope that you're all having a wonderfully creative fall, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye now.